Good morning, everyone. So this morning I'm going to continue talking about the Heart Sutra. The part this morning I'm going to talk about is just a few lines. It just says, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no extinguishing, no path. And if you remember, the Heart Sutra says that everything is empty. And the part that we did before says sensation, conception, discrimination, awareness are likewise like this. It's talking about emptiness of the five skandhas. And it says all dharmas are forms of emptiness, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without loss, without gain. So in emptiness, there's no form, no sensation, conception, discrimination, awareness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, phenomena, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no end to ignorance, no old age and death, and no end to old age and death. And now this part just says no suffering, no cause of suffering, no extinguishing, and no path. And some of you might recognize that as the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths were expounded by Shakyamuni Buddha in his first teaching. And the first Noble Truth says that life is dukkha, which is translated as suffering. And the second declares that there's a cause for the suffering. And the third is that one can put an end to the suffering or extinguish suffering. And the fourth Noble Truth expounds the Eightfold Path, which is a means to extinguish suffering. And so the Heart Sutra says there's no suffering. There's no cause of suffering. There's no extinguishing or extinguishing of suffering. And there's no path. There's no Eightfold Path to extinguish. So the Heart Sutra seems to negate this teaching, which is a fundamental teaching that's expounded in all Buddhist centers the world over. But if we look at it more carefully, what it actually implies is a radical affirmation. What is negated is our ideas and opinions, not the activity. When I let go of my ideas about an action, I'm not separate from either action or non-action, which is right action, and that's one of the Eightfold Path. And the reason we suffer is that everything is impermanent and constantly changing. And we are seeking permanence, whether it be an ego, a fixed self, ultimate truth, the primordial elementary particle. We want permanence and constancy and comfort in our relationships, which are constantly changing. We're bound to suffer since we're constantly disappointed that things don't go the way we want. Things go the way they go. So Buddhism recognizes 6 realms of existence or psychological states. One of them is a human realm, which most of us occupy a large percentage of the time. But when we're angry, we become demons. And when we're greedy, we become hungry ghosts. And when we're tormented, we reside in the realm of hell. And when we're happy and complacent, we reside in the realm of heaven. And when we are indifferent to the suffering in the world, we're like an animal. It's the animal realm. So we think that we're in the human realm. And I've heard that only from the human realm can one attain Buddhahood. That may be true. But the human realm is not better than the other realms. The human realm is characterized by conceptual interpretation of each moment and its changes. Thus, humans are stuck in the world of delusion. Since it's all one body, we can freely transmigrate through the 6 realms of existence. It's only when we attach to one or the other that we suffer. That kind of suffering is ego-grasping suffering, and it's fundamentally neurotic. It should be distinguished from selfless suffering. Egocentric suffering causes us to contract and become inactive or defensive or mean. We'll do whatever is necessary to protect and preserve our cherished beliefs of who we are, what should happen to us. Basically, it's a life-denying response. When we're able to experience no self, pain and suffering does not suddenly disappear. However, if we're able to totally experience the pain and the suffering, there's no separation. There's no subject who suffers, and there's no object that is suffered. So in a sense, suffering is gone. So that's why the Heart Sutra said there's no suffering. In the Diamond Sutra, it says if someone is reviled by others, that person has acquired bad karma in a previous existence. Because of this falling into evil ways, so that he is reviled by people in this life, the bad karma of the previous existence will be exhausted. So that's case 58 in the Blue Cliff record. So then the question is, how do we, present that section of the Diamond Sutra in Doksan without being conceptual? So just being reviled by others does not exhaust bad karma. You would have to be totally hated by others and allow that hatred to penetrate your entire body and mind. You can readily test this in the laboratory of life. So if you keep banging into things or situations due to your expectations, for example, it is due to a strategy you develop to protect your self-image. Consequently, you suffer. The way to put an end to the suffering is to advance toward the suffering and pain, to experience it totally. Then you won't be afraid of it. Chunks of the ego-grasping ignorance will drop off. Your life will become more expansive. So the Eightfold Path is a way to end suffering, or to experience the no suffering. And as the Heart Sutra says, no cause of suffering, no extinguishing. And if you really practice the path, it becomes no path. So the Eightfold Path is the following: right view, or right understanding, right thought, right words or speech, right conduct, or right karma, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, or samadhi. Now, the right is not a dualistic right or wrong. It means to eliminate all concepts, and you have right view. But, for example, right view, just by eliminating concepts, doesn't mean that your understanding goes all over the place. There is a right understanding. So this right view is an element of insight, seeing the nature of things. And what is the nature of things? Well, it says in the Heart Sutra, it's all empty. But when we see that emptiness, we see, as the Buddha said, everybody and everything is totally connected. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it inner being. It's the oneness, but it's not only the oneness, it's the interconnectedness, the inner being. It's, from one perspective, we're all separate. From another perspective, we're all one. So it's having the right view. But in order to see that right view, we have to let go of the self. So the Eightfold Path sets forth 8 different paths of letting go. So after 50 years of teaching and giving Dharma talks, the Buddha said at his deathbed, "For 50 years, I have not uttered a single word." That's right speech. Speaking, without using your lips and tongue. Can you speak without using your lips and tongue? Speaking with the whole body. Speaking without putting up filters to project a certain image. So right speech, letting go of concepts doesn't mean unconscious blathering, just a stream of consciousness just going on. There always has to be that element of insight. I say, seeing things as they are. Things as they are. So all of the paths depend upon this right view, seeing clearly, right action, right livelihood. So right livelihood just isn't the type of work you do, it's also how you contribute to your fellow beings, how you contribute, to the livelihood of the planet, and all the animals and plants, and the non-sentient mountains, clouds, the rivers. So if we say that life is suffering, that can become just another idea. Life is life. whatever words or ideas we add to it is not life. But there are ways of talking about life. That's by stating no suffering. The Heart Sutra is affirming life. But don't take no suffering as another idea. Master Bankei explained how to do it. He wrote, or he's probably spoke and it was written down. As you've all been hearing me say, everyone has innate Buddha mind. So all you need to do is abide in the unborn, just as it is. However, following the ways of the world, you get into bad habits in life and switch the Buddha mind for the wretched realm of hungry ghosts with its clinging and craving. Grasp this thoroughly, and you'll always abide in the unborn Buddha mind. But if you wish to realize the unborn, you people try to stop your thoughts of clinging and craving from arising. And then by stopping them, you divide one mind into two, as if you're pursuing something that's running away. As long as you try to deliberately stop your rising thoughts, the thought of trying to stop them wars with the continually arising thoughts themselves. There's never an end to it. You're saying the thought of trying to stop thoughts is another thought that continues. Then he gives a rather graphic example. He said it would be like trying to wash blood away with blood. Of course, you might get out the original blood, but the blood after that would stick and the red would never go away. Similarly, the original clinging thought that you were able to stop may come to an end, but the subsequent thoughts concerned with your stopping them won't ever cease. Well, then you might wonder, well, what am I supposed to do to stop them? So, even if suddenly, despite yourself and wholly unaware, anger should appear, thoughts of clinging and craving arise, just let them come. Don't develop them any further. Don't attach to them without concerning yourself about whether to stop your rising thoughts or not to stop them. Just don't bother with them. And then there's nothing else they have to do but stop. And he says you can't have an argument with a fence when there's no one there to fight with. Things can't help but simply come to an end of themselves. So when all kinds of thoughts come up, just let them be. Just go back to your breathing. Just go back to your sitting. Just go back to the moment. And even if somebody in front of you is stimulating that anger, just be present. Just bear witness to it, and then see what happens. So that's thoughts, and having right thoughts, but also suffering. The same with suffering. If you don't, try to stop the suffering by whatever techniques we might develop, rather than just totally experiencing it, it'll continue. But don't forget, the whole point of the Eightfold Path is to lead to this no suffering, to really embody this no suffering, to manifest no suffering. So, the old Eightfold Path of right view, right thought, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. They all lead to no suffering. So what is right view? It's just seeing things as they are. And how are things as they are? Empty. So no fixed thing. Right view, right thought, no fixed thought. Don't cling to any thought. And right speech. Well, it's all kinds of speech. It's always good just to be kind. Sometimes, you have to be harsh, but only when necessary. Right conduct, right action. Are we creating more suffering or not? Right livelihood. Are we protecting the earth or not? Right effort. I've talked about right effort quite a bit. And one of the things that I've said is right effort means to get rid of whatever's extra. What is extra? What are we holding on to? Then right mindfulness. That's like awareness. That's our practice. Being aware. Being aware of how we're functioning, how our life is, how other people's lives are. And then right concentration, being willing and able to just focus without adding anything extra on each moment. Well, that's our practice. That's what the Heart Sutra says. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no extinguishing, and no path. And thus, there's no fear.